What started as a perfect family camping trip in the wilderness would become one of the most baffling disappearances in recent history. A 12-year-old girl and her beloved grandfather vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and heartbreak. But 7 years later, a shocking discovery at a remote dam spillway would finally reveal the truth behind their mysterious disappearance. It was the summer of 2016 when the Henderson family planned what they thought would be a memorable camping adventure. 12-year-old Emma Henderson was excited to spend quality time with her grandfather, Robert "Bob" Henderson, a 68-year-old retired forest ranger who knew the wilderness like the back of his hand. The destination was Pine Ridge Lake, a secluded spot nestled deep in the Cascade Mountains. Bob had been coming to this area for over 30 years, first as a young ranger, then later with his family. He knew every trail, every creek, every hidden spot that made for perfect camping. Emma's parents, Sarah and Michael Henderson, had planned to join them for the weekend, but work commitments kept them back in the city. They weren't worried. If anyone could keep Emma safe in the wilderness, it was her grandfather. "Dad knows those woods better than anyone," Sarah had told her husband as they waved goodbye to the camping duo. "They'll have the time of their lives." On Friday, June 15th, 2016, Bob and Emma loaded up his old pickup truck with camping gear, fishing equipment, and enough food for 3 days. Emma had packed her favorite book, a journal to document their adventure, and her camera to capture memories with her grandfather. The plan was simple. They would set up camp by the lake, spend their days fishing and hiking, and return home on Sunday evening with stories to tell. The drive to Pine Ridge Lake took them through winding mountain roads, past towering pine trees and breathtaking views. Emma was chattering excitedly about all the fish they would catch and the campfire stories her grandfather would tell. Bob smiled as he listened to his granddaughter's enthusiasm, remembering when he used to take her father on similar trips decades ago. This was their tradition, their special time together away from the busy world. They arrived at their campsite around 3 p.m., a familiar spot Bob had used many times before. It was perfectly positioned about 200 yards from the lake shore, with a clear view of the water and surrounded by tall pines that provided natural windbreaks. Emma helped her grandfather set up their tent, gather firewood, and prepare their campsite. Everything seemed perfect as they settled in for what they expected to be a wonderful weekend together. That Friday evening, they cooked hot dogs over the campfire, and Emma wrote in her journal about their first day. Bob told her stories about his days as a forest ranger, about the wildlife he had encountered, and the natural wonders hidden throughout these mountains. Emma listened with wide eyes, completely captivated by her grandfather's tales. They went to bed early, planning to wake up at sunrise for their first fishing expedition. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. Bob and Emma had breakfast, packed their fishing gear, and headed down to the lake. According to Bob's later testimony, they spent the morning fishing from the shore, with Emma catching her first trout of the trip. She was so excited that she insisted on taking dozens of photos to show her parents. Around lunchtime, they returned to camp to eat and rest during the hottest part of the day. This is where the story takes its mysterious turn. Bob later told investigators that after lunch, Emma wanted to explore a trail they had spotted earlier that morning. It was a well-marked path that led up the mountainside, supposedly offering spectacular views of the valley below. Bob, being an experienced outdoorsman, agreed to the hike, but insisted they take proper supplies and return before dark. They set off around 2 p.m. on Saturday, carrying water, snacks, and Bob's emergency radio. The trail was moderately challenging, but well within their capabilities. Emma was in good spirits, stopping frequently to take pictures and collect interesting rocks and leaves for her collection back home. Bob kept a steady pace, pointing out various plants and wildlife tracks along the way. According to the timeline Bob provided to authorities, they reached a scenic overlook about 2 hours into their hike. Emma was thrilled with the panoramic view and spent considerable time taking photographs. They rested for about 30 minutes, enjoying the scenery and a snack. This would be the last normal moment of their camping trip. Bob told investigators that on their way back down the trail, they encountered an unexpected situation. A section of the path had been washed out by recent rains, creating a detour that wasn't marked on any of Bob's maps. Being experienced in wilderness navigation, Bob decided they could safely navigate around the washout using his compass and knowledge of the terrain. However, what should have been a simple detour quickly became complicated. The alternative route was more difficult than anticipated, with steep terrain and thick underbrush. Emma, tired from the day's activities, began to struggle with the challenging conditions. Bob made the decision to find a safe place to rest and reassess their situation. They found a small clearing where they could set up a temporary camp for the night. Bob used his emergency radio to try to contact park services, but the mountainous terrain interfered with the signal. He wasn't overly concerned at this point, confident in his ability to navigate them back to their campsite in the morning. Emma was tired but not panicked, trusting completely in her grandfather's experience and judgment. Sunday morning brought unexpected challenges. Bob woke to find that Emma had developed a fever during the night and was feeling quite ill. She complained of stomach cramps and dizziness, symptoms that concerned Bob greatly. He made the decision that they needed to get back to their vehicle and seek medical attention as quickly as possible, even if it meant abandoning some of their camping gear. Using his compass and memory of the terrain, Bob began leading Emma back toward what he believed was the direction of their campsite. However, the combination of Emma's illness, the unfamiliar terrain from their detour, and growing panic began to cloud Bob's usually sharp judgment. What should have been a few hours' walk turned into an entire day of wandering through increasingly unfamiliar territory. By Sunday evening, Bob was forced to admit they were lost. Emma's condition had worsened and she was struggling to walk. Bob made the difficult decision to leave Emma in a sheltered spot while he went ahead to find help. He marked the location carefully, gave Emma most of their remaining water and food, and promised he would return with rescue teams as soon as possible. Bob's solo journey to find help became a nightmare of wrong turns and false hopes. The terrain seemed to shift and change around him, with familiar landmarks appearing where they shouldn't be. After 2 days of desperate searching, he finally encountered a group of hikers who were able to guide him back to civilization. By then, nearly 4 days had passed since he had left Emma alone in the wilderness. The massive search and rescue operation that followed involved hundreds of volunteers, professional search teams, helicopters, and tracking dogs. Bob led them to where he believed he had left Emma, but the location seemed to have changed. The landmarks he remembered weren't where they should be, and despite extensive searching, no trace of Emma could be found. The search continued for weeks, expanding to cover hundreds of square miles of wilderness. Every trail was walked, every cave explored, every possible hiding spot investigated. Search teams found some of their abandoned camping gear from the detour, but no sign of Emma herself. The case baffled investigators and search experts who couldn't understand how a 12-year-old girl could simply vanish without leaving any trace. Bob Henderson was questioned extensively by police, park rangers, and FBI agents. His story remained consistent throughout multiple interviews, but investigators struggled with the gaps in his account. How could an experienced outdoorsman with 30 years of wilderness experience become so thoroughly lost? Why couldn't he relocate the spot where he had left his granddaughter? The questions multiplied, but answers remained elusive. The Henderson family's anguish was compounded by the uncertainty surrounding Emma's disappearance. Without any evidence of what had happened to her, they were left in a horrible limbo between hope and despair. Sarah Henderson made numerous public appeals for information, while Michael Henderson organized private search parties that continued long after the official search was called off. Bob Henderson was devastated by the loss of his granddaughter and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. He blamed himself for making the decision to take the detour, for leaving Emma alone, for being unable to find her again. The guilt consumed him, and he spent every day for years returning to the wilderness, searching for any sign of what had happened to Emma. The media attention surrounding the case was intense, with theories ranging from animal attacks to abduction to simple misadventure. Some questioned Bob's account of events, suggesting there might be more to the story than he was revealing. Others defended the grieving grandfather, pointing to his decades of experience and unblemished reputation as evidence of his truthfulness. As months turned into years, the case gradually faded from public attention. The Henderson family never gave up hope, but the trail had gone completely cold. Bob continued his solitary searches, but his health began to decline under the stress and guilt of the situation. Emma's parents struggled to rebuild their lives while carrying the constant weight of not knowing what had happened to their daughter. The breakthrough came 7 years later, in the summer of 2023, in a completely unexpected way. Maintenance workers at Thornfield Dam, located about 15 miles from Pine Ridge Lake, were conducting routine inspections of the spillway system when they made a discovery that would finally solve the mystery of Emma Henderson's disappearance. During a period of low water levels, workers found human remains trapped in the spillway's debris screen. Along with the remains were personal items that would soon be identified as belonging to Emma Henderson: her distinctive purple backpack, her camera, and her journal. The discovery sent shockwaves through the law enforcement community and brought the Henderson family's 7-year nightmare to a tragic conclusion. The investigation into how Emma's remains ended up in the dam spillway revealed a complex series of events that explained the mysterious circumstances of her disappearance. Forensic analysis and water flow studies conducted by engineers painted a picture of what had actually happened during that fateful camping trip in 2016. Emma's journal, remarkably preserved in her waterproof backpack, contained entries that provided crucial details about her final days. The entries revealed that after Bob left to find help, Emma had tried to follow what she thought was a stream that would lead to civilization. Weak from illness and disoriented, she had followed the water downstream, not realizing it was leading her further from safety. The stream Emma had followed was actually a tributary that fed into the reservoir system connected to Thornfield Dam. During the summer of 2016, the region had experienced unusual weather patterns, with periods of heavy rain followed by rapid snowmelt from the high country. These conditions had created fast-flowing water in normally quiet streams, turning them into dangerous torrents. Forensic experts concluded that Emma had likely fallen into the swollen stream and been swept away by the current. The journey from where she entered the water to where her remains were found would have taken her through miles of underground culverts and water management systems before finally being caught in the dam's spillway screens. The discovery explained why search teams had never found any trace of Emma despite their extensive efforts. She had been carried far from the search area by the floodwaters, ending up in a location that no one would have thought to look. The dam's spillway system had essentially become her final resting place, hidden from view for 7 long years. Bob Henderson's account of events was finally validated by the physical evidence. The investigation confirmed that he had told the EUI truth about their camping trip, their detour, and Emma's illness. The tragedy was exactly what he had always said it was: a series of unfortunate circumstances that had led to an unimaginable loss. The Henderson family finally had the closure they had been seeking for 7 years, though it came at the cost of confirming their worst fears. Emma's remains were returned to her family for burial, and a memorial service was held to celebrate her life and finally lay her to rest. Bob Henderson, now 75 years old and in failing health, was able to find some peace in knowing that he had not failed his granddaughter as he had believed for so long. The case of Emma Henderson's disappearance serves as a stark reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in the wilderness, even for experienced outdoors enthusiasts. It also highlights the importance of emergency preparedness and the unpredictable nature of natural forces. The 7-year mystery that tormented a family and baffled investigators was ultimately solved by chance when routine maintenance work revealed the tragic truth that had been hidden in plain sight all along. Emma's story continues to impact search and rescue procedures in the region, with new protocols established for checking water systems and dam infrastructure during missing person investigations. Her memory lives on through a scholarship fund established by her family to provide outdoor education opportunities for young people, ensuring that her love of nature and adventure continues to inspire others. The Thornfield Dam spillway discovery finally brought closure to one of the region's most perplexing missing person cases. but it also served as a sobering reminder of the wilderness's power and the importance of never underestimating nature's ability to change the course of our lives in an instant.
Heart content.